Hi, welcome to Off the Shelf with Christine and Katie. We are in our favorite season.
The best season.
It is fall. We have upcoming Halloween, which is perfect for curling up with a book that may be a little bit on the spooky side, may have some supernatural elements, because we love a good scare here and there.
Oh, we do. We
know?
This is our favorite season.
Absolutely, pumpkin everything.
Yes. There might be some pumpkins back here, so take in the gander.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so definitely we hope you enjoy our list and you add the following to your TBR, and definitely let us know in the comments what you think of these picks, or if you have any titles to recommend us. Trust me, we always need more during the spooky season.
Absolutely.
It's the best season, as we stated, so definitely give us some more if you have any. And also be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel if you wish to be notified of future videos. But for now, let's get to those books.
Right.
So
time to, grab yourself that hot drink.
Exactly.
Curl up. Maybe you might want to leave the lights on for some of these. I don't know. Sometimes they're more fun to read in the dark. First up, we have Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. This is a haunting story where a young boy named Christopher goes missing in the town to which he and his mother have just fled. 6 days later, Christopher reemerges from the woods with a voice in his head telling him to do just one thing: build a treehouse in the woods by Christmas, or his mother and everyone in the town will never be there. This one was best read with the lights on. I read it with the lights off, and I actually had to stop reading it and come back to it weeks later.
Yeah, she's mentioned this in previous videos, so I knew when it came back, I was like, this makes sense
Some people are not as happy with the ending, and I would say that, maybe the ending could have been better, but the bulk of it, good scare.
Okay, great. And the next one we recommend, we don't have it to show up, but it is the famous The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. And this is about the story of 4 seekers who arrive at a notoriously unfriendly place called Hill House. Dr. Montague, who's an occult scholar looking for evidence of a haunting, Theodora, his lighthearted assistant, Eleanor, a friendless, fragile woman who is well acquainted with poltergeist, and Luke, the future heir of Hill House. At first, their stay seems destined to be merely a spooky encounter with inexplicable phenomena, but Hill House is gathering its powers, and soon it will make them choose to make one of its own.
I love a good haunted house story.
Exactly. And if anyone who's seen the movie, both old and new, it has very different things to offer. The original one is more of a very gothic story, and the other one, I would say, depending upon your point of view, is kind of goofy horror a little bit. So that's up to you. I believe it's Owen Wilson is in it, so he accounts for a little bit of that goofy humor.
Nice. Next up, we have The Witches of Moonshine Manor. There we go. And that's by Bianca Marais. And this involves a coven of modern-day witches, a magical heist gone wrong, and a looming threat. 5 octogenarian witches gather as an angry mob threatens to demolish Moonshine Manor. All eyes turn to the witch in charge, Queenie, who confesses they've fallen behind on their mortgage payments. Still, there's hope, since the imminent return of Ruby, one of the sisterhood who's been gone for 33 years, will surely be their salvation. I believe you're currently reading this book?
Yes, I'm currently reading this book. I'm not that far in, but so far it's still spooky, but it has very hilarious vibes.
I like it.
So I really wanted to read this. I saw it recommended to me a lot on TikTok and a bunch of book reads, so I had to add it for the spooky season, and it's a new spooky read. Awesome. So I'm looking forward to finishing it.
That's great.
I am not that far in, though, I will say.
So, what do we have next?
Alrighty, so this next one is also a new read. It's called The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. And it is about Art Barbara was not cool. As a 17-year-old high school loner in the late 1980s, she started an extracurricular club for volunteer pallbearers only at poorly attended funerals. I love this setup.
That setup is awesome.
Yes, I had to include this one when I saw that setup.
What a good club to create.
Exactly. Let's just go create one ourselves. It'll be great.
Yeah.
And his new friend thought that the Pallbearers Club was cool. She even brought along her Polaroid camera to take pictures of the corpses. Okay, that part was a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was her obsessive knowledge of a notorious bit of New England folklore that involved digging up the dead. This doesn't have a great start. And then there were other strange things, terrifying things that happened when she was around, usually at night. But she was his friend, right? So it was okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And decades later, Art tries to make sense of it all by writing The Pallbearers Club, a memoir. Somehow his friend got her hands on the manuscript and had some issues with it, and now she's making cuts.
What kind of cuts, I wonder?
Well, so far from what I know of the book, because I have it checked out at home, is that she writes stuff in the margins based on his point of view. I will not make a comparison to what her supernatural element is, because it's a lot of fun to just find out.
From what I've read about this, that it's a surprise ending element as to where the supernatural element falls in, so we don't want to give anything away.
Yes.
But I hear it's a good twist.
Yes, it's a lot of fun.
So, what's up for us next?
Okay, so the next one I have to recommend is Ring by Koji Suzuki. And it is originally titled as Ringu, translated from the Japanese, but this book is about journalists. I can't say his name, so I'm just going to pop it here. I tried 3 times before this. She can attest to that, so I'm not going to do it. But it's about the journalist's sudden investigation into the deaths of 4 teenagers from heart failure that leads to an isolated cabin containing a videotape warning of a death in 7 days unless certain, but now missing, instructions are not followed. This is based on this is also made really good movies, yes, it's based on the movies. There's a Japanese version called Ringu, and then The Ring, and they're both really good adaptations, so I highly recommend them.
That movie scared me.
Right, it is very scary, but if you know, you know. So based on that, I had to recommend the book. And they don't omit this in the movie, that the instructions are now missing, so I actually find that a really interesting detail that they omitted. So I'm curious as to why, so I actually might want to now pick this up based on this, but it's really interesting. The story is great, and actually it's really rare that you get both a Japanese and an American adaptation that actually good. I would actually slightly recommend the American version better. And what's strange is the Japanese director directed both. So I don't know why, but somehow I think maybe in time he was like, here's what I can do to change and add to it. So I thought that was really fascinating. So highly recommend The Ring.
Okay.
And now we have the next one to recommend.
Yes. So the next one we want to recommend is the Molly Southbourne trilogy by Tad Thompson. Now, each one of these books very short, so they're kind of a good pick if you don't want to be totally scared. It's a great series about a young woman whose blood generates a new murderous version of herself. She bleeds, there's a new clone, and they try to kill her. So Molly Southbourne has spent her entire life being very careful for fear of bleeding and creating more monsters. And in the final book of the trilogy, a legion of these creatures band together and discover their origins, which seem to lie in Russia. Like I said, it's 3 short books. You can enjoy them in one sitting, or just sporadically if you're not in the mood for a big read. But it's a.
So if you want to draw out the spooky season, just grab one, wait a little bit, wait till the end.
But perhaps you might want a longer series. So we do have a few of those we highly recommend. First up, we have The Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkins. This is book 1 of the All Souls series. This series revolves around a centuries-old vampire, a spellbound witch, and the mysterious manuscript that ties them together. You've got supernatural romance, you've got some mystery, you've got some history, and books. So what's not to love? It's also a series on AMC, which I think they did rather well. I've read the first book. I still have to finish the whole series, but I really thoroughly enjoyed it. So it was very good.
Great. I actually haven't seen the AMC show. It's been on my list.
Yeah. And next up, this is one of your favorite series. I enjoy it, but I know this is one of your favorites. We have mentioned this
time and time again, but we have to mention it multiple times, especially in spooky season.
Absolutely.
It's Practical Magic series by Alice Hoffman. And for those who don't know but should, so this is a story of generations of magical Owens women of Massachusetts, from a window of time from which the Salem witch trials to the present, and the love curse that has plagued their family for generations. It's about history, witches, and family tales that span centuries. It's absolutely wonderful. The characters are amazing. The movie is amazing, I will add. I want that house in the movie. But truthfully, it's amazing. I'm only holding the rules of magic because it's more about the ants, and I love the ants.
Yes.
The ants are amazing.
I think we both actually liked the earlier books better than...
Yes.
The books about their earlier family history than the original Practical Magic. As a matter of fact, we did a lengthy video about comparing the book to the movie.
Yes, we will link it here at the top here. If you want to watch that, please feel free. But yes, I think we both agreed the later books
are better.
But
overall, the series is wonderful.
Yes, but somehow also, if you ever want an exercise in how to make a okay book into a movie, Practical Magic actually would be the one to examine, because truthfully, while the book we found a little lackluster, the movie we found great.
Exactly. And you can read these books in any order, either the order they were
Yes.
published, which starts off with the book about the newest generation and then goes backward, or you can read them in the order of the beginning generations up to the
Yes,
present.
you won't be
Doesn't
missing
matter.
anything by starting anywhere you want.
So-
They're all great, and the family members, it only gets better with age. So thank you, Alice Hoffman, you're a treasure.
Now, next we
the
have
best option ever.
yes, a series that we both love for very, very, very many reasons. We consider
will
it the
get to
best
them.
around. And Kate, why don't you tell us what it is?
Alrighty, so this is The Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, and is the book 1 in the Vampire trilogy. And
Yes.
here's
Ta-da.
mine. 90s and today.
Today.
The description of this book, if you don't know already, it's born as an 18th century lord. Louis is now a bicentennial vampire telling his story to an eager biographer. He is suicidal after the death of his family, and he meets Lestat, a vampire who persuades him to choose immortality over death and becomes his almost lifelong companion. Eventually, gentle Louis resolves to leave his violet maker, but Lestat guilts him into staying by turning a young girl. Great start. Whose addition to the family breeds even more conflict. This series also has several satellite books with backstories to many of the vampires you'll meet in this series,
Yes.
and in our opinion, it's simply the best. And there is a new AMC series that is coming out this month, and we are really looking forward to. I believe it's one of the actors from Game of Thrones who actually took over Louis. I forget who it was, but I'll pop his name in here.
I do know the Vampire Chronicles, which is the entire series. I think it's like 5 books. The satellites, I can't even
That's actually
remember.
true.
Like we have here the
Here's
Vampire
two Lestat.
Armand, and you have
The Vampire Lestat.
so that it goes through it. You also have ones about Pandora, I think it is.
Yes.
And there's a few. There's quite a
Yes,
few.
there's quite a few satellite books, but what is always funny about these satellite books is they're almost in response to the previous one. So then Lestat responds to this one, and then Armand responds to this one. So it's almost like they're commenting on what occurred before.
And I just love how she sticks kind of to the vampiric lore, but kind of
Yes.
gives you a new twist on things. And it includes them as part of society, but yet they're their own society.
Yes.
I just love it.
It's amazing. It's great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
And then this is now a new segment we have started just for this. I'm going to go let you take it.
All right. So, would any listing be complete without a few picks from the master, Stephen King? We didn't think so.
No.
So we have a few favorites from us and other fellows around the library, starting off with Night Shift. Now, we've mentioned this book before. It's a collection of 19 of his most unsettling short stories, like where noises in the walls and shadows by the bed are always signs of something dreadful on the prowl. I read this book many years ago. I'm still scared of Scratching in the Walls from Jerusalem's Lot, which actually is kind of like a prequel to Salem's Lot, which is another book of his. You also have Children of the Corn in here. You have
There's a lot of great
a
short
lot
stories.
of great short stories. I find this is like one of his masterful tellings. So if you don't want to be totally scared, you can read a short story and then maybe try to go to sleep.
Right. I recommend if you're going to do one Stephen King, do the short story collection.
Yeah.
Because you'll get a sense of who he is as an author, and you don't have to dive in deep to his books. Because some of his books, if you notice, are like this.
Exactly. So I think you were going to tell us about one of these.
Yeah, so speaking of one of them, so this is also the other classic, Pet Sematary. So just to mention this first, Stephen King himself has declared that this is his most terrifying story. And I think it's mainly because we put a lot of trust into our pets, and therefore when they do what they do later in the story, then it becomes very unsettling. But that is Stephen King for you, so if you pick this one, you know what you got into. But this book follows Dr. Lewis Creed, who, after relocating with his wife Rachel and their 2 young children from Boston to rural Maine, discovers a mysterious burial ground hidden deep within their woods near their family new home. Way to explore your backyard, I must say. But it is a terrifying story, and the movie is also very unsettling.
Yes.
So if you do read this one, maybe read it with the lights on.
Yeah, that's another lights on.
That's another lights on one
Which
for
kind
me.
of leads us into Joe, where man's best friend turns into his worst enemy.
Speaking of pets.
Yes. When sweet Saint Bernard Cujo is bitten by a bat, he starts behaving oddly and becomes very aggressive. And as Cujo morphs into a dangerous beast, he goes on a rampage in the small town. There's been the movie where you see Cujo, this part happening. Read the book because it ties in a little bit to Christine. A card that's possessed by a demon. Yeah, I know. A card that's possessed by an evil spirit. That's what happens to the dog.
Exactly. So,
poor puppy.
if you want to watch that, watch Christine right after.
Yes, and then you have one of his more recent books.
Yeah, so this is one of his more recent ones, and I believe there is an HBO TV series about it also. But this is The Outsider. And is about an 11-year-old boy's violated corpse is discovered in a town park. Eyewitnesses and fingerprints point unmistakably to one of Flint City's most popular citizens, Terry Maitland. He's a Little League coach, an English teacher, husband, and father of 2 girls.
Good guy.
Exactly. Until the terrible stuff happens to him. And Detective Ralph Anderson, no relation again, offers a quick and very public arrest. The case seems very ironclad, especially when Anderson and District Attorney are able to add DNA evidence to go along with the fingerprints and witnesses that were discovered that were there at the scene. But Maitland has an alibi, and it turns out his story has incontrovertible evidence of his own, and how can these 2 opposing stories be true? And it's very interesting how they go into it. I definitely think this is one of Stephen King's better ones. I will say I wasn't that thrilled with the monster overall. Well, a spoiler, there's a monster in a Stephen King book. But overall, I liked the main characters. They were very entertaining. They are also in other stories of his.
Nice.
So that's very interesting. I did not get through the entire HBO show, but from what I saw, it was also very interesting. But I highly recommend this one, and it's very good for October. It is a bit of a commitment, but if you can make it through, it's a very, it flips very easily, so it's a very good, easy read.
Awesome. Now, we have a couple of picks that
These
are on our radar.
We call these the On Our Radar books. These are new books that have been coming out or are out for the spooky season, so we highly recommend them. But speaking of our last Stephen King segment, we would be remiss to not mention his newest book,
Fairy Tale. This one I think just came out within the last week.
Yes, our coworker literally bought this today, and
Beautiful.
we asked her if we
Such
could
a
borrow
beautiful
it.
cover. It's a spellbinding novel about a 17-year-old boy who inherits the keys to a parallel world where good and evil are at war, and the stakes could not be higher for their world or ours. From what I understand, there's like fairy tale retellings with obviously a dark side to them. I absolutely love the cover. It may be a little hard to see. This is not a dragon's eye,
which we thought it was.
It's a portal going down into, I guess, the fairy tale realm. We'll find out.
I guess so.
Unfortunately, we have to wait for our coworker to read it before we get our hands on it.
Yes, so put it on hold if you want to start reading it, because I'm sure the list will
There's
get
already a very
long.
long list, but if you're a big Stephen King fan, I'd get yourself on that wait
and
list
it'll be
right
worth
now.
the wait, inevitably.
All right.
Okay, and the next one we want to recommend is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And this novel follows 4 indigenous men who are being tracked and haunted by an entity that lingers from a crime committed a decade prior. It is a horror story of revenge and identity as the men find that you can't outrun the culture that they left behind. This eerie story will continually shock you, yet ends so perfectly, you'll almost forgive the brutal scenes you endure to reach the end. I'm guessing you've read this because now you added
Actually, I've been meaning to read it. I've had people tell me about the ending.
Oh,
so
I see.
that's how
So
I
you want to
know.
include that tidbit?
Because sometimes I like the good spook and scare, but I don't like the brutal. So I've had people tell
Oh,
me
I
that
see.
the ending is a little brutal, but well worth it.
Oh, okay.
So it is. This book came out this year. I've been dying to read it. I figured I'd save it for spooky season. So
All right, so if you can
wait.
get through that, highly recommend then.
Next up, now we have this book. This book, House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson, is coming out this month. And it's about Marion Shaw is so desperate to get away from her life of poverty that she takes a job as a blood maid in the far north. There it is her job to provide blood for the mysterious Countess Lissavet to drink. This practice is a sign of nobility, she's told.
Sure.
But when Marion's fellow blood maids start to go missing, she begins to suspect that her life may be in danger. Now, if you haven't figured it out, it's vampires.
Yes.
Love vampires. Love vampires this time of year. I got myself my hands on an art copy
Early
of
copy?
this,
Yeah.
so I can't wait to delve into it.
Nice.
Those are the books we have. If you like books with a little supernatural element, we hope you've enjoyed our picks. Let us know if you've tried any of them, what you thought about it, and join us next time for some mystery picks.
All right. Have a great October, great season ever, and we'll see you in November.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.